Eric Butz.
And I'm Jim Butz.
And we are SuicideFantasyFootball.com. Got to give Jim some props today. Doing the videos when he just had a tooth pulled. He just pulled a wad of crap out of his mouth. Full of blood.
Playing hurt.
Yeah, rub some dirt on it, Jim.
That's right, walk it off.
So first thing we want to talk about today is the quarterbacks that have either already made moves in free agency or we think are going to make moves soon that could have an impact in fantasy football. First, Jim, early today, it's Wednesday, early Wednesday morning, we heard something that we all thought was going to happen. Matt Hasselbeck, officially a Tennessee Titan. I think great move for Tennessee. I think he's the perfect person to groom Jake Locker. They kind of have a little bit of relationship from Locker being at Washington and Hasselbeck being in Seattle. So I just think it was the right move for Tennessee to make.
I mean, listen, if you're talking fantasy football-wise, I don't think he has much.
No, I'm not picking Hasselbeck in fantasy.
Not even as a backup, probably, you know.
No.
Depending on how things go,
especially without without a out of jail Kenny Britt, which I'm not going to be surprised when he's locked up long term.
Kenny Britt's a viable option, but I mean they're not huge there. It's a good move football wise for the Titans. You don't want to go in there with a bunch of bums and Jake Locker thrown to the wolves right there. So.
All right, so next a move that I think you're going to say does have fantasy impact, and that's your boy Donovan McNabb now being a Minnesota Viking.
I love the move. I think they're automatically the second best team in that division now. They move ahead of Chicago. They're better than Detroit.
They're not better than Chicago.
They are. Chicago's bums. But, Donovan's never had a running back like Adrian Peterson. Depending on how Sidney Rice goes, they signed my boy Devin Alphabet yesterday. They still have Percy Harvin. They still have Brashante Shanko. So they got weapons there, and I think that it'll be a good move for. And
listen, he's never had a running back like Adrian Peterson, but Adrian Peterson isn't the guy that McNabb needs to dump the ball out of the backfield a lot. So that's
where Shanko's going to go to.
Well, we'll see.
You're gonna.
I'm just saying, I'm not sure McNabb is going to have the year that you want to believe he's going to have.
Listen, I'm not saying he's even going to be a top 10 quarterback. I'm not saying that. I think
fantasy-wise.
No, not top 10. No,
he's a backup.
He's backup. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I agree. All right, next is Seattle. They signed two bums, Tavares Jackson and Matt Leinart. First, who do you think's the starter come week 1?
Matt Leinart.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
See, I think it's going to be Tavares Jackson, just because I think he can do more. Matt Leinart is proven to not be a good pocket quarterback, and what else can he do? At least Tavares can scramble a little bit and gun the ball.
Matt Leinart had a bad time in Arizona. We've seen quarterbacks
put the bong down.
Whatever it could be. But he was very successful under Pete Carroll, and that's what you got to keep in mind. Everybody laughed when they signed Mike Williams last year, and what happened? Mike Williams became not the beast. Not the beast, but he was a definite viable fantasy football.
He was a player. He was half of the times the best Mike Williams to have on your fantasy roster.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Saying something. Yeah. All right, next. Some guys who haven't moved yet, but we think are going to move soon. First, Kyle Orton. If he does go to, let's say, Miami, where does he rank with these other quarterbacks as far as impact the Dolphins will have in their division and then fantasy impact?
Fantasy impact, I think, is pretty big because he's going to be back with Brandon Marshall, and anybody's better than Chad Henne. He's a shot player.
I agree.
So,
you think they have a chance of competing in that division with the Jets and the Patriots, especially if the Jets are going to get Asamoah and Moss?
I don't think, regardless, Dan Marino doesn't make them compete. Dan Marino in his prime doesn't make them compete in that division. But fantasy football-wise, I think it's a big deal.
All right, Vince Young. First of all, where do you think he lands? And do you think he will be the backup for the Eagles? Mm-hmm. All right, then I'm not going to ask your fantasy impact because there's no way he's going to have any fantasy impact. Now, if he ends up on another team, do you believe Vince Young has a chance to be closer to the guy that we saw at Texas than the kind of out there bust that we've seen over the past couple of years?
There's not many teams where he's going to get a chance to play. He's going to be a backup probably this year.
Unless someone gets hurt. It's going to be.
Unless somebody gets hurt. Mm-hmm. He's going to be a backup. He's going to be proving himself. And I think Andy Reid has shown that he can rebuild quarterbacks and make them viable options.
Get a pick for him next year.
Mm-hmm.
Not a bad idea. All right, that's what we think about the quarterbacks. Tell us what you think. Jim at SuicideFantasySports.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, SFFcom, and check out our Blog Talk radio show tonight, Wednesday, 7:30. to 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Blog Talk Radio, Fantasy Football Overload. I'm not even making you say anything else, Jim, because your face hurts.